June 18th, 1815. The plains of Waterloo. Amidst the thunderous roar of cannons and the chaotic retreat of his panicked army, Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte abandons his personal carriage. In the mud, scattered among discarded belongings, lay a treasure, a dazzling diamond brooch. Official history claims it was merely a wartime trophy discovered by the Prussian army. But what if, behind the scintillating glitter of nearly 100 diamonds, a far more dramatic story lies hidden? What if this precious artifact isn't just a lost trinket, but a silent witness to the final hours of a great empire? Today, we'll peel back the layers of dry facts and persistent legends to uncover the true secret held by the brooch that bore witness to Napoleon's greatest defeat. To grasp the true significance of this brooch, we must transport ourselves back to 1810. Europe lived by Napoleon's decrees. The first consul had become emperor, and his court at the Tuileries aimed to eclipse the splendor of the old Bourbon monarchy. This was the era of the empire, or empire style, a design movement that drew inspiration from the austere grandeur of Rome and the opulent luxury of Egyptian pharaohs. Fashion became a political instrument, and jewelry the ultimate language of power. Every new creation was meant to proclaim the unshakable might of the new dynasty. Napoleon, a brilliant strategist not only on the battlefield but also in matters of public image, personally oversaw the resurgence of French jewelry artistry. He understood, to legitimize his power, he needed symbols that rivaled or even surpassed those of royalty. He placed colossal orders with the finest Parisian masters, such as Marie-Étienne Nitto, founder of the House of Chaumet, and Martin-Guillaume Biennet. Their mission was to craft not merely ornaments, but manifestos of imperial might for the emperor himself and his consorts, first Josephine, then Marie-Louise of Austria. It was within this atmosphere of lavish extravagance and potent political symbolism that our brooch came into being. This was no spontaneous whim. The commission came directly from the emperor himself, and his demands were crystal clear. The piece had to be monumental, dazzling, and most importantly, unequivocally masculine. It was destined not for a ball gown, but for the military accessory that had become Napoleon's signature, his famous black bicorne hat. The concept was audacious and brilliant all at once. To transform a humble hat into a crown-like emblem, to bedeck the commander's symbol with the brilliance of hundreds of diamonds. The brooch was intended to be a mobile throne, a badge of absolute power that followed the emperor everywhere, from parades on the Champ de Mars to official receptions. It was a radiance designed to assert his status and inspire awe. The Parisian jewelers, whose names regrettably have not been preserved in historical records, executed the client's wishes with meticulous precision. They fashioned a perfect circle, a symbol of eternity and perfection, and imbued it with light. At the heart of the composition, a large oval diamond was set, encircled by nearly 100 old-cut stones. Each stone was chosen with incredible care to create a singular, pulsating brilliance. Thus, more than just an ornament was born. It was a concentrated nexus of imperial glory, an artifact forged at the zenith of Napoleon's power. He could not yet know that this brilliant symbol of his triumph was destined to become a silent witness to his most crushing defeat. Let us momentarily set aside history and examine the brooch itself as a jeweler might have, breathing life into it. Picture a disc of noble metal, most likely gold, measuring 45 millimeters in diameter. That's the size of a large pocket watch, substantial and weighty in the palm of your hand. Its very form, a perfect circle, was no accident. It represented the most ancient symbol of the sun, of eternity, and of absolute indivisible power, a silent manifesto of imperial ambitions. At the heart of this universe, its undisputed center, shines the main diamond, an oval stone weighing 13.04 carats. In that era, this was a fortune, equivalent to the cost of a small estate. Its cut, what we now call an old cut, was designed not for a blinding flash, but for a deep, mysterious shimmer under candlelight. Each of its wide facets was hand-carved to catch and slowly return the light, creating the effect of a living, breathing fire within the stone. Around this central sun revolved two orbits, two concentric rows of nearly 100 smaller diamonds. This was no anonymous scattering. The emperor's jewelers toiled for months to select stones of various shapes and sizes, crafting an intricate light-pulsing texture. Every diamond, from the tiniest to the quite noticeable, was unique, yet together they merged into a unified hymn to light. It was a sparkling retinue, faithfully serving its sovereign, the central diamond. A jeweler's artistry is evident not only in the sparkle of the stones, but also in the invisible craftsmanship. Each diamond was securely set in its mounting, likely silver, as was customary then to enhance the stone's whiteness. If we could flip the brooch over, we would see an intricate openwork structure that made the piece lighter yet stronger. One can almost feel its weight, the cool smoothness of the metal, and the sharp play of light as hundreds of facets simultaneously catch a ray. This design was not merely an aesthetic choice, it was an encrypted message. The concentric circles radiating from the center symbolized the empire itself, where everything submitted to a single will emanating from the emperor. It was a miniature jewelry cosmos, a tangible model of the new world order Napoleon was building. Every detail, from the shape to the arrangement of the stones, worked towards a singular idea, the idea of absolute and unquestionable grandeur. And imagine the effect it produced. In the flickering glow of thousands of candles at the Tuileries Palace, when Napoleon took a step or turned his head, his bicorne came alive. The brooch flashed not with a harsh, cold gleam, but with a warm, golden radiance. It was a spectacle that inspired awe and delight, the final touch to the image of a man who considered himself equal to the ancient Roman Caesars. Picture Paris in April of 1810. The city buzzed with anticipation for an event poised to solidify the empire and forever etch Bonaparte's name into the annals of European dynasties. Emperor Napoleon, conqueror of Europe, was marrying Archduchess Marie-Louise of Austria, niece of Marie Antoinette. This was more than just a marriage. It was a political triumph, a fusion of new power and old blood. The Tuileries and Louvre palaces were awash in luxury, unseen since the days of Louis XIV. And then, amidst this splendor, he appeared. Napoleon, clad in his dress uniform, austere and majestic. His image was a meticulously crafted manifesto. But on that day, all eyes were fixed not on the medals on his chest, but on his famous bicorne hat. On the black felt, like a newborn star, it shone, his new diamond brooch. Unveiled to the world for the first time, it dazzled everyone. This was no mere debut, it was a challenge. In the flickering light of thousands of candles, the brooch transformed the commander's simple headwear into something akin to a crown. As the emperor moved, hundreds of iridescent sparks scattered from the brooch, capturing everyone's attention. It was the final chord of his image, speaking louder than any declaration. I am not only a commander, I am the emperor. My power is as solid and eternal as these diamonds. By adorning his military headwear with the diamond brooch, Napoleon executed a brilliant symbolic maneuver. He did not renounce his past as a soldier, but crowned it with the brilliance of a monarch. He showed everyone, both the old aristocracy and his marshals, that his empire was built not only on the strength of bayonets, but also on the right to luxury, on the right to be at the center of the civilized world. Whispers swept through the halls of the Tuileries and spread like wildfire to every European court. Diplomats in their dispatches described not only political agreements, but also the incredible brilliance of the emperor's diamonds. The ornament instantly became a subject of discussion, admiration, and of course, envy. It ceased to be merely an object, transforming into a political asset, a symbol of Napoleon's seemingly unbreakable power. From that moment on, the brooch was no longer just a jewel. It became a legend, a tangible symbol of the zenith of his glory. On that day, at his wedding, Napoleon didn't just introduce the world to a new empress. He introduced the world to a new standard of imperial grandeur, at the heart of which was this dazzling constellation of diamonds. 5 years. In the history of great jewelry houses, that's just a fleeting moment. But for Napoleon's brooch, these 5 years, from 1810 to 1815, became its golden age, an era when it was more than just an ornament. It was a living part of the greatest legend of its time. Its sole and primary owner was the emperor himself, and in his hands it became something far grander than a mere accessory. It became his personal standard, his bejeweled autograph. The brooch was not an item for everyday wear. Napoleon, a master of self-presentation, clearly delineated his personas. There was General Bonaparte in his modest grey coat and simple hat, approachable to his soldiers. And there was Emperor Napoleon, heir to the Caesars, legislator and ruler of Europe. It was for this second persona that the brooch was intended. It appeared only at those moments when it was necessary to present to the world not a military genius, but the sacred figure of a monarch. Imagine June 9th, 1811, Notre Dame Cathedral. The baptism of the long-awaited heir, the son of Napoleon and Marie-Louise, who was granted the title King of Rome from birth. This was the apotheosis of the emperor's dynastic ambitions. And on this day, holding the infant who symbolized the future of his empire, Napoleon once again donned his bicorne with the diamond brooch. Its light reflected off the cathedral's gold, and this brilliance, this language of absolute power, was understood without words. It declared, "My dynasty has come to stay forever." During these years, the brooch became a silent witness to grand history. It saw the bowing heads of ambassadors and kings in the halls of the Tuileries. It heard marshals debate future campaigns. It was present at lavish balls, where the beauty of the new empress and the sparkle of court ladies were meant to prove that Paris had once again become the capital of the world. The brooch was an integral part of this imperial theatre, its brightest spotlight always directed at the main actor. For a man who believed in his star and followed the signs of fate, this ornament was undoubtedly also a personal talisman. Its form, a perfect circle, a solar symbol, was a reflection of his ego, his belief that he was the sun around which all of Europe revolved. By wearing it, he wasn't merely adorning himself, he was seemingly recharging himself with the energy of his own glory, reminding himself and the entire world of his exceptional destiny. Thus, the brooch became the emperor's calling card in his highest manifestation. To see it on Napoleon's bicorne meant being present at a historic moment. It became as recognizable a symbol of his imperial status as the eagles on the banners of his Grande Armée. It was a dazzling sign of his triumph, a challenge to old monarchies, a declaration that the era of the Bonapartes was an era of light and splendor. But no one at the time could have guessed how short this golden age would be, or how tragically it would end. But every light casts its shadow, and the brooch's golden age ended as swiftly as it began. Its dark side isn't a story of court intrigues, stolen letters, or secret lovers. Its scandal is far grander, the thunder and shame of Waterloo. Here, on the field of the Emperor's final battle, a brilliant symbol of power transforms into an artifact of the greatest defeat. The official version, recorded by the victors, sounds noble and concise. After Napoleon's flight, the brooch was found in his personal traveling carriage and 3 days later presented to Prussian King Frederick William III as a military trophy. These words, found and presented, paint a picture of order and military honor. But let's for a moment imagine the reality of that day. Chaos, panic, mud, desperate flight, and rampant looting. Battlefields in those times were places where the victors took everything they could carry. This is where the first shadow falls. Was it an officer, respectfully setting aside the jewel for his king? Or was it a simple Prussian soldier, the first to breach the abandoned carriage, thrusting his hand into the emperor's coffers, only later, under threat of punishment, to hand over the priceless find to his commander? History, written by the victors, remains silent on these particulars, but they linger in the air. The brooch, forged as a symbol of ultimate power, might very well have begun its new journey in the grimy sack of a common thief. Then there's another, more mystical legend. Some romantic historians ponder, could this hasty retreat and the abandonment of personal effects, the brooch included, have been a symbolic act of sorts? Could Napoleon, a man who famously believed in his guiding star and the omens of fate, have realized in that moment that his star had set forever? And by casting aside this dazzling emblem of his triumph, was he not, in a way, shedding the burden of power, acknowledging his defeat in the face of destiny? It's a beautiful theory, to be sure, but one entirely without proof. Only one fact is documented. The brooch passed from the hands of the French emperor into those of the Prussian king. But this very transition, that is the central scandal. The adornment that for 5 years had dazzled Europe with the brilliance of a new empire now became proof of its collapse. Its light had not dimmed, but now it illuminated not Napoleon's triumph, but his humiliation. It was the most costly and dazzling punctuation mark, ending the saga of the First French Empire. The brooch's transfer was no lavish ceremony in a hall of mirrors. Instead, it was a dry, almost perfunctory act, sealing a military rout. On June 21, 1815, at the Prussian High Command's headquarters, a glittering diamond circle, which just 3 days prior had crowned the head of the ruler of Europe, was laid before King Frederick William III. The king accepted this offering not as an elegant gift, but as tangible proof of his victory. In that moment, the Napoleonic era for this particular adornment definitively concluded. The light of an imperial star had transformed into the cold gleam of a war trophy. The emotional atmosphere surrounding this transfer was utterly polarizing. For vanquished France, it symbolized loss and national humiliation. For Prussia, it was a palpable triumph, a glittering scalp taken from its greatest foe. The brooch, conceived as a talisman of eternal glory, became a monument to the greatest fall in history. Its light had not extinguished, but now it illuminated not the birth of an empire, but its funeral. From this point forward, a completely new life began for the brooch, or rather, a non-life. It found its way into the treasury of the House of Hohenzollern, the ruling Prussian and later German dynasty. And here began its long slumber, its life in the shadows. From an active player in history, a symbol worn for all the world to see, it transformed into a passive exhibit, a mere relic. No Prussian king or German Kaiser would have dared to wear it. To wear Napoleon's adornment would have been a mark of poor taste, an implicit acknowledgement of his unparalleled status. Thus, the brooch came to rest upon a velvet cushion in a dark safe. Decades rolled by. It silently endured the unification of Germany, the birth of a new German empire, and its shattering collapse in 1918. Two empires it had belonged to crumbled, yet the small diamond circle remained unharmed. It became a custodian of silence, a time capsule whose existence was known only to a select few guardians of royal treasures and family members. The world forgot it, and it seemed its vibrant public life had ended forever. Almost 2 centuries of silence. In that span, the world transformed beyond recognition. Empires that had once seemed eternal crumbled to dust. Presidents replaced kings, and opulent palace balls gave way to the clamor of stock exchanges. The brooch, fashioned for one grand empire and seized by another, outlasted them both. It slumbered in the velvety darkness of a private collection belonging to the descendants of the House of Hohenzollern, evolving from a relic into a family secret. Then, at the dawn of the 21st century, the world collectively gasped. Sotheby's auction house announced its Geneva sale, and among the lots, bathed in spotlights and gracing the pages of glossy catalogues, the familiar diamond circle once again blazed forth. After 2 centuries of obscurity, Napoleon's brooch was returning to the global stage. This was no mere appearance. It was a sensation, a resurrection from oblivion. But the world it returned to was utterly different. Its new interpretation bore no resemblance to imperial grandeur. From a symbol of absolute power, it had transformed into an object of investment and collectible passion. No longer would it be affixed to a bicorne hat to inspire awe. Instead, it was placed under armored glass, assigned a lot number, and an estimated value ranging from 130,000 to 220,000 euros. The audience was no longer courtiers and diplomats, but billionaires, corporate titans, and museum curators. It was precisely at this moment that its value reached its absolute zenith. And we're not just talking about money. The preliminary estimate even seemed modest, for it failed to capture the most crucial aspect. Yes, it contained diamonds weighing over 13 carats. Yes, it was the work of Parisian jewelers from the Empire-style era, but its true worth was composed of the intangible, of its impeccable provenance. This was not merely a brooch, it was an artifact touched by Napoleon's hand, a witness to Waterloo and a trophy of the Prussian king. Every single carat was steeped in epic history. Global media erupted with headlines. Historians, jewelers, collectors, everyone discussed this triumphant return. The brooch once again found itself at the center of public attention, but this time its triumph was different. It was a victory not of military might, but of historical memory. It proved that authentic masterpieces are capable of outliving their creators, their empires, and even entire epochs, only to return one day and remind the world of past glory. And so, on November 11th, 2021, in the Sotheby's Hall in Geneva, the auctioneer's hammer struck for the final time. After intense bidding, Napoleon's brooch sold for 242,500 Swiss francs, significantly exceeding even the boldest preliminary estimates. The name of the new owner, as is tradition at major auctions, remained a secret. Having completed its dazzling lap of honor on the world stage, the diamond artifact once again receded into the quietude of a private collection. Its current guardian is an anonymous connoisseur who acquired not just a piece of jewelry, but a tangible fragment of monumental history. Today, the brooch's status is definitively and irrevocably set. It is no longer an emperor's accessory nor a king's trophy. It is a museum-quality historical artifact. Its place now is not on the felt of a bicorne, but in a special climate-controlled safe, or perhaps one day as an exhibit in a prestigious display. To wear it today would be almost sacrilege, akin to drinking wine from Priam's cup. Its journey from the world of living politics to the world of eternal history is complete. Let's break down its current value. The sum paid at auction is not just the price of diamonds and gold. The material value of the stones, even the central 13-carat diamond, constitutes only a small fraction of that figure. Its true value, its capital, lies in its flawless provenance. This is a documented, unbroken chain of ownership stretching all the way back to Napoleon Bonaparte himself. Collectors paid not for carats, but for a legend, for the right to possess an object that witnessed the zenith of glory and the abyss of defeat of the greatest military commander, for an item that lay in the mud of Waterloo and rested in the treasury of Prussian kings. Every franc paid beyond the intrinsic value of the stones is payment for history, for the chance to touch eternity. In the world of high collections, this is the ultimate currency. So, we return to the question where it all began. What secret exactly does the brooch truly hold? The one that witnessed Napoleon's greatest defeat? The answer turns out to be both simpler and more complex than one might have guessed. Its secret isn't in a conspiracy or a hidden message. Its core mystery lies in its astonishing ability to be a perfect mirror. At the zenith of glory, it reflected the dazzling sun of imperial ambitions. In the mud of Waterloo, it mirrored all the gloom and chaos of a monumental collapse. In the hands of the Prussian king, it showed the cold gleam of the victor's triumph. And today, under the glare of auction spotlights, it reflects our insatiable thirst to touch grand history. This diamond circle is not just a piece of jewelry. It is the physical embodiment of human passions, frozen in time. Within it resides the pride and genius of Napoleon, his dream of an everlasting dynasty. Within it, the fury and tenacity of his enemies, who brought down the invincible. Within it, the reverence of generations who saw in this small object the echo of momentous events that reshaped the world map. The brooch's journey is complete. It has traveled from the personal talisman of one of history's most powerful figures to a silent trophy, and then to a universally recognized cultural artifact. It has proven that true value is measured not only in carats or the clarity of stones, but in the depth of stories an object can tell. It ceased to belong to one person or one nation, becoming the heritage of collective human memory. The brooch no longer serves as a symbol of one man's power. Now, it serves as a symbol of history itself, its ascents, its falls, and its astonishing capacity to endure within seemingly fragile objects. It has become a silent chronicler, one that needs no words to recount the drama of an entire epoch. Empires crumble, armies turn to dust, the names of the great are erased by time. But some objects, having absorbed their energy, remain. Their cold brilliance outlives the roar of cannons and the quiet of vaults, to remind us again and again, ambitions are mortal, but beauty, imbued with a grand story, is immortal.